Mr. Wilkins, how are you? So good to see you, and very excited about this particular conversation about your
Mm.
philanthropic journey.
Thank you. A pleasure to be here.
Great. So tell me a little bit more about your journey into impact and philanthropy and all the amazing things you've been doing.
Yeah, so let's see. I think it started, started back in 1976. I turned 50 back in February. So this is the year I was born. I was born and raised in a very small, quaint town in New England, in the United States, a college town, Hanover, New Hampshire, home to Dartmouth College. Very slim sliver of humanity, very privileged, sort of isolated upbringing. And then tried to find something new by flying 3,000 miles to California for my undergrad studies, to only realize that that was like the West Coast version of a small New England college town where I found myself. And then my senior year, I'm 21 years old at this point. I took a semester abroad program to the east coast of the African continent, coastal Kenya, Tanzania. We were living with Kenyan families. We were learning and dreaming in Swahili. We were eating all the chapati, drinking all the chai, wearing the kikois. Like it was a full
Immersive
immersion,
experience.
yeah, into that experience. And that was, as cliche as it sounds, Emma, that was the first time that I saw the rest of the world. It was also the first time that I really saw myself as a potential leader and someone who could be of service in some way, shape, or form. So that was the turning point for me. And then the next 30 some odd years have been my effort to really leverage my skills as best I can in service of humanity. And those skills, as far as I can really tell, come down to how we bring people together, how we convene folks, how we create a sense of community and belonging and connection.
You really do embody collaboration and connection. And I'd love, we were just talking earlier about your upcoming event in Portugal. So
Yeah.
maybe you could tell us a bit about how you've been able to curate this experience and convening and the thought that went into developing this community that you've built. And yeah, just tell us a bit more about how you practice as well.
Great, great, great. Well, first disclosure is I'm not the founder of it, so I can't take credit for the whole idea. The founder is this brilliant guy named Jonathan who uh, had a career in the microfinance and micro lending space, and well before starting Opportune Collaboration in 2009. And because of that, he was attending a lot of traditional boring top-down conferences.
Conferences.
Yes, those things we all know and love. With all the plenaries and the PowerPoints and the keynotes and the rubber chicken dinners and the windowless conference environments and
Yes,
all of
yes.
that
I
good
think
stuff.
we're all a bit fatigued. I think that's very
We
clear.
are, we are. And yet the conference sector, Amma, continues to replicate that model ad nauseum. Um, Despite everyone's feedback that we don't need to be sitting in a row of chairs staring at so-called experts
Yeah,
8
yeah.
hours a day.
Right.
So to Jonathan's credit, he came up with a very simple but different model with OC, which was essentially recognizing that all we really want to do is talk with each other as opposed to at each other. And it's the normal coffee breaks or like cocktail receptions at most conferences when we actually have the opportunity to do that. So OC was built around the
It's so
notion that,
true. And then everyone is standing outside.
yeah,
Everyone's
exactly.
standing
No,
outside and not wanting to go back into the the coop.
because they actually get to talk to
Yeah.
talk with each other. They actually get to connect.
You want to
So
interact and yeah, yeah.
yeah, and I think most importantly, Amit, you want to forge an actual relationship with the human being you're talking to. So even in those rare moments at most conferences where we do get to talk to each other, it can end up being a lot of flinging of business cards around the room. Oh, are you there? Present.
Slight
Yeah.
interruption there, but we're back.
Hello again. Um, Where was I? Yeah, so even in those moments where we do get to interact at most conferences, unfortunately that time tends to be spent on the polished elevator pitch and the rapid exchange of business cards and this what I would call traditional networking as opposed to actual relationship building.
Yeah.
So with OC, it's not only do we get to talk with each other most of the time, but we also have the chance to develop real meaningful human relationships, like develop that foundation of trust and empathy with each other as fellow human beings simply trying to make a difference in this world.
Amen to that, and long way may we see some more challenges to the traditional model of conferencing, because especially in our space where so many nonprofit leaders and people in the impact space, social impact leaders, are burnt out and really just really trying to figure out how to even not even survive but thrive in what they're trying to do with their communities in place. It's really important for us to actually find new ways to approach, like you said, building trust, relationships, and connection. So I really appreciate the format that you created. So tell us a bit more about Portugal coming up in November.
Yeah, sure. So this will be the second time we'll be there. We were there for the first time last year. And I'm talking about our annual in-person sort of flagship event here on a we originally set foot on those hallowed shores of Portugal last year, namely to be closer to our friends on the African continent. So every year at OC these days, we have about 450 people attending. About 150 or so are coming from somewhere on the continent these days.
Hmm.
And moving it from what was otherwise the Caribbean or Central America, Western Hemisphere to Portugal last year was an attempt simply to be on the same longitude.
Meridian. Yeah, yeah.
Very, yeah, as most of our friends on the continent. Now, I will also caveat this by saying we fully recognize that this is Portugal is also where some of the first ships sailed
Mm.
when we're talking about the slave trade.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we fully recognize that, and we've done a lot of work to reconcile with that history in terms of hosting OC there. It was a very prominent piece of our messaging and conversation at OC last year, and it will continue to be so again this year.
I think it's really important that we actually do appreciate, embrace, and name the history and the past, right? In terms of what we're trying to do to move towards more systemic equality and development and aid and philanthropy. I mean, all of these things, impact investing, all of these things that we talk about and meet and convene around. We are trying to also convene in February next year. Ghana hits its
Mm.
70th year of independence from the British next
Wow.
March. And so we are convening a philanthropy future summit in Ghana, and also giving people the space, the time, especially those who are stewarding wealth, to really sit with us in a curated experience in Ghana. In Accra, so obviously hoping to collaborate with you guys on that, to really
Yeah,
just
great.
really figure out how we want to show up as funders, as nonprofit leaders, as social impact leaders, really working together as partners to try and crack this issue. I mean, I'm from the entrepreneurship and sort of development finance background. But we know very much that all these entrepreneurship training programs just haven't worked. They haven't actually resulted in more jobs created, more manufacturing, better businesses that are really absorbing these millions of young people, especially on the African continent. So I think we need to really again go back to embracing and setting the scene around like what it is we are recovering from and repairing in
Yeah.
terms of damages and harm that's been done to maybe slow down the development, especially around the global south, and the history that's driven some of the extraction and ongoing developmental challenges that we're still grappling with. So yeah, I really
Yeah.
appreciate the fact you taking the time to again curate experiences where you name what's been happening and how you want to show up with the work that you do.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about strategy, like in terms of fundraising, mobilizing resources for this kind of work. What is
Mm.
your thinking? What are you hearing? What are you seeing in terms of how funders in particular are behaving, acting, maybe shifting in terms of power and dynamics with those that they are actually funding and supporting?
Yeah, great. Uh, so I've been in this space for a long time. I mean, January of last year was some of the hardest circumstances that we faced, I think, as a sector in a long time.
Yeah.
Um, and watching the emergence and the sort of what feels like early steps of rebuild since then has
Mm,
been really encouraging. Really encouraging because I will admit in the quieter conversations I've had in my career in the sector, um, a lot of us were hoping that USAID and other traditional development agencies would reconfigure or readjust or somehow do the work differently. I think none of us wanted it to collapse in the way that it collapsed and sort of all
sure.
the inhumane consequences that came with that collapse last year.
Mm,
But nonetheless, here we are faced with the opportunity, I suppose, now that the crisis seems to have abated a little bit, to rebuild and rebuild in a way that is truly in service to the work that we want to see happen. And it's no shocker here. The rebuild is about global South solidarity. It's about global South to
mm,
global South support. It's about you know, putting communities in charge of their own destinies as opposed to being reliant on outside resources. So the more advanced sort of efforts in philanthropy and impact investing that I'm seeing are truly taking this opportunity to step more into that mindset and adopt more localization, more proximity, more trust when it comes to those funding practices. There's still a long way to go. There's a long way to go, but I think that
mm.
we're starting to see some of those early steps, especially now that we're about a year and a half into it.
Yeah, I think that South-South collaboration, domestic capital mobilization, localization, these are all things that we've been talking about for a while, but of course now we've been forced to really address,
Correct.
roll up our sleeve and try and
Ugh.
figure it out. So I hope and pray for a better landscape for global development to actually happen.
Yeah.
And
I'll give a
yeah,
quick shout out, Amma, while I've got the mic here to something called the Global South House. If anyone, have you
okay,
ever heard of this before? You should check it
no,
out.
no,
Yeah,
I
Global
will.
South House. It's a
Uh-huh.
relatively new effort from about a year or so ago, as far as I
Okay.
know. And it's a consortium of Global South funders, an
Oh, I love
alliance of
that.
Global South funders coming together. And I'm proud to say
Mm.
that we have a incredibly strong cohort of members of the Global South House attending OC this year in service of moving this exact conversation forward.
Well, I've got to be in Portugal in November. Let me go
Hey.
buy my ticket. Yeah, that's such a compelling. But that is it. The funding collaboratives, the South South again, like that really it's elevated in what you are saying that you were working on and also enabling and encouraging. So it sounds super exciting and encouraging to hear from you that you're seeing at least some sort of green shoots of hope that we can maybe hold on to and also join and enforce our efforts along those lines. So, any final words in terms of philanthropy, funding, global development, and also, I mean, a lot of conversations that we are also trying to promote around, diversifying grantee bases because you normally see the same typical rock star names going
Yeah.
through the circuit, right? So, how do
Mhm.
we also enable and elevate the voices of those maybe who don't have so much access, and how are you encouraging maybe funders to diversify some of their efforts as well. I know, of
Yeah.
course, resources are tight, but it's a conversation that we are having often.
Yeah. I appreciate that question, Amma. I mean, I think in the context of OC, we are seeing more and more funders stepping up to support grantee partners to be at the table. In other words, to be at spaces like Opportune Collaboration and School World Forum and
Yeah.
Clean Global Initiative and Social Innovation Summit, and on and on and on, the places where the conversations are happening. Um, and and that, that representation, that presence, that voice is a lot of I think a lot of where the work needs to happen. I will also end by saying this. I think in the grand scheme of things, and this stems beyond our impact sector and our global development industry.
Mm,
Um, I think we as a species are waking up to the idea that we can't fix the problems with the same tools that created the problems in the first place.
right. Right.
So as much as we want impact investing, philanthropy, et cetera, which are all sort of symptomatic of global markets and neoliberal capitalism to help solve these problems, we have to recognize that global markets and neoliberal capitalism are also responsible for creating the problems we're trying to solve. And so
Right.
how do we shift how do we reinvent the tools that we need to address the systemic root causes of these issues?
And would you be able to identify, or like what evidence are you seeing that those tools are sort of emerging, and
Yeah.
where are they sitting? Who's leading the charge on the new
Yeah, I
tools?
mean, this is where I get excited about efforts related to different ownership and legal models. You
Yes.
know, we've seen like the rise of B Corp, for example, over the years, and
Yes.
B Corp's fantastic. It was a fantastic sort of first step towards us realizing that we needed to reconfigure. At the end of the day, B Corps, it's a certification. So
Yes.
is your business taking X, Y, and Z steps to be more aligned with a triple bottom line accounting model? I think there's new work emerging recently in the last few years that is taking that a step further and saying that in essence, businesses need to be owned by the communities that they're trying to serve, not just say that they're doing good on the balance sheet. That the ownership structure and the legal model itself needs to be reconfigured around community ownership and real
Yes.
steward ownership. So maybe this is another episode, Amma. I mean, we've done a lot of work at Opportune Collaboration to actually embody these new types of ownership structures. And some of it is not necessarily new. Like there's examples like the Madrigal Collective in the Basque region of Spain that's been going for centuries. That is a collection of independent businesses owned by the community. So those types of models, I think, was where we're going to see new and evolving innovation in this world of sort of decoupling ourselves from the traditional systems of ownership.
Well, that's a great note to end on, and something to hold on to in terms of delving into what some of those older models of collective ownership that we really would love to see. I'm super interested and fascinated by ownership and just community and money, every dollar circulating within economies, and that's really how you build sustainable wealth in
That's right.
place, right? So,
Yeah.
thank you so much. It was really great to speak to you, and I look forward to
Yeah.
hopefully collaborating more during the year.
Great. I hope to
Thanks.
see you in Portugal.
Yes, I'm booking my ticket ASAP. Thank you so much. Thanks so much.
Yeah.